Hi, everybody. Angel here. I just wanted to come on, say hi to everybody. Thanks so much for joining. And today I'm super excited to speak with Stephanie of Vegan Mainstream. So we will get started early. And thanks so much for joining, everybody. Hope you're doing great wherever you're in the world. Hi there. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, Stephanie. How are you?
Doing great.
Awesome. I am just pasting our topics in the comment section just to keep me on track because I do tend to ramble. So
No, this is great. It's wonderful. I'm seeing them right there, and we'll just have a good old time today.
awesome. And I want to say hi to everybody who's joining either live or on the replay. I see some new faces and some familiar faces. And we already have a comment from Fluffy Jim Hairs and Beauty. Hi, hey girl, it's Kelly from Club. Oh yes, Kelly is in the United Kingdom. Hi, Kelly. Awesome. So I'm super excited today, Stephanie, and thank you so much for taking the time. I know everybody's super busy. And so I want to thank you and thank everybody for joining. And so because we have so many topics to go through today, I think we should just jump right in there and get started.
Sounds good to me, and thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. So my first question for you, Stephanie, is if you could please share with us your vegan journey, how you started, and how you ended up to where you are today.
Absolutely. I mean, my vegan journey, I think, started very similar to other people, where I started on the kind of that vegan health journey, the idea of trying to eat better, had a little bit of a health scare. And I was like, okay, need to pay attention to what I'm putting in my body. Because if I'm eating things and I get sick from it, it means I need to change what I'm eating. I need to pay attention. And that was probably one of my biggest lessons learned. And for me, it came right around my senior year of college, but I didn't get it all right away. I did a traditional path. I went like vegetarian and took a little bit of this out, a little bit of that out. All right, I see you pointing, so you understand.
Totally.
Yeah. So as I tiptoed my way there, what ended up happening is I started hanging out with others who were vegan. I ended up hanging out with other people who were a part of the movement. And that's what really propelled me forward. I was so fortunate. At the time, I was living in Connecticut, and being able to like hang out with it was a group, it was a vegetarian and vegan group, but the group became more and more vegans because we had some really outspoken individuals that educated us vegetarians on the impact of the animals, on the impact of the environment. So it's like I had to unfortunately have two wake up calls when it came to this, but I'm glad that I am awake now and I am there. So I actually made my official transformation to being vegan in 2005. And at that point, that's when I really understood what was going on and what, the choices on my plate made in my own health, the choices I made in the environment, the choices I made and how it hurt animals and how I could change that. And like I was so empowered to do it. It was like amazing that, I think that's what's so great about the lifestyle is that how empowering it makes all of us.
I can relate to a lot of what you said, and shout out to those pushy vegans who just spreading the message. No, because I think a lot of us. I was vegetarian slash pescatarian for 20 years before I switched to
Ah,
veganism, and
mm-hmm.
well, it was also for health reasons that I started down that path. But well, originally I started actually in my first year in university because I had stumbled across this book that was some vegetarian book, but in hindsight, it was actually vegan because, for example, in the recipes to replace what eggs or milk, they would recommend bananas and applesauce. Like there were no animals in the book at all.
Ah,
But they called it vegetarian because it was way back when, and I guess it was still considered the pure vegetarian, not the lacto ovo
yes.
pescatarian kind of a thing. So I can definitely, but what I was getting at, sorry, is that a lot of us, at least I know I did, I felt, well, gosh, being vegetarian was just great. I was just doing great. Like I was doing a lot of good. Like I didn't even understand the whole factory farming situation, to be honest with you. But I just thought, well, gee whiz, I'm eating super clean here. And so, it's when you find out, like you say, what's really, behind the doors and behind the curtains and all that, then it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing something great, but I'm still causing so much harm.
Absolutely. And also, when you also start to think about all the choices we make, because we're talking a little bit about the food on our plate, but to maintain this hairdo, I need some products. And those
Yep.
products, same thing. And those products have animal byproducts in it. We think about not just our shampoo, our soaps, everything, even down to fashion. The idea is that
Clothing.
we can, yes, clothing, all of these things that we're creating demand for is creating harm, is creating not just us harm to the environment, it's also all these products that are just being put into landfills. I mean, it's just so amazing. And I don't want to dump on everyone's shoulders to just make it sound like, oh my goodness, it's just gloom and doom. I think it's more the opposite. It's that we have choice, and we have choice over and over daily throughout the same day to actually change. And to me, that's the exciting part, is that we get all of these opportunities to do better, to get transparency, to really find a way to make sure that, we're taking care of this earth, and we're taking care of, the gifts and the things that have been given to us.
Totally. And I say to people, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And like you said, like I was shocked, like for example, even to buy a candle, I was like, oh yeah, right, I need to choose a soy candle, not a beeswax candle. Or to, the other day I was buying wooden bowls, and I saw the label that said there was beeswax as a finishing. I was like, no, I'm not buying that one. And I had to talk to the shopkeeper, and long story short, I found the woodworker, and then he ended up using walnut oil for my bowls. But it's just like, like it's just lurking everywhere. Like we have to, it's just in all areas of our lifestyle.
Absolutely. And it's perpetuated in ways that some people don't even know it. Like the example of your woodworker. I don't know his story, but there's plenty of people that are using products that are considered the standard, unfortunately. And what happens is we just replicate the standard, as opposed to saying, let's challenge the status quo and let's use walnut oil. Let's use things that are sustainable. Let's use things that are better for our environment. Because I think a lot of the products that are out there that are used are kind of like, the products that other manufacturers couldn't use, so they just put it into the system. So therefore, it's a lot of change that has to happen, but I think there's a lot of people who are, pushing a status quo that they don't even know of. So a lot of times, we have to be a little bit pushy and educating at times, but we also have to understand that this takes change. This is cultural change. This is a lot. And for many of us, it's also educating people and making sure people understand where their products, where the things that they come from, and do they really agree with it?
And it's so interesting you say that, because the shop salesperson said to me that she learned something, that it never dawned on her that beeswax was an issue for vegans.
Yes.
It never dawned on her. And she says, wow, I learned something. Oh, I have to go and research that. I thought, whoa. And I mean, of course, I just took things for granted too. I didn't know there was beeswax lurking in all kinds of different parts of our, shopping choices. So it really is, like you said, and they're just these legacy practices, these traditional practices that people just don't question. And I never questioned them before either.
Yeah. And I think it's a huge opportunity for us at all ages and all walks of life to ask these questions, to ask, is there a better way for us to do this? Is there a better way to make this change? And in some cases, like the stuff I like to do is, I'm all about people like starting businesses and creating their careers around it as well, that maybe it's an opportunity to start a career that helps propel veganism forward.
And on that note, we have a hello ladies from Page, absolutely. And
Hey,
we have And we have from Fluffy Jim, that's Kelly. She said, I love that. When you can educate, silk often gets overlooked too. Yes. And Fluffy Jim, who's Kelly behind the scenes, she did what you're saying. She created a vegan hair salon in the UK. And
Ooh,
and
impressive.
it's the only one in her area. So, like you say, she used it as an opportunity to create something awesome. So shout out to you there, Kelly behind Fluffy Jim.
Absolutely. Kelly, I want to give you an official shout out as well.
Yeah, yeah. She named her company after her two animals. I want to say they were like I don't know if they were gerbils or hamsters. I can't remember, but yes, her animal companion. So there you go.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So now let's go, please, to vegan mainstream, and please tell us when and why you created vegan mainstream.
Absolutely. So I started Vegan Mainstream in 2009. So that was a few years after I had become vegan. It was when I guess I was at a phase in my life where I was trying to make career choices. At that time, I was living in California. I was thinking about my next opportunity. I'd been working in corporate America. And, there's some great, wonderful things about corporate America, but there's some frustrating things about corporate America too. So when I was trying to decide my next move, what did I want to do? I kept having this yearning for like, can I bring like my career and my passion for marketing and business together with my passion for veganism? And at the time, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. At the time, when I was talking about like vegan marketing, people were like, huh? What do you mean? So I was,
That'll never work. That'll never
yes,
work. They probably said.
just shook their heads at me like, come on. So, it really was a labor of love back then. It was really something where I had to figure out trial and error. And I say this for a lot of people because a lot of vegan business owners, a lot of vegan managers, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of us have to kind of stumble around in the dark a little bit in our businesses because these aren't all industries that have been established for years. These aren't kind of, processes that have been set up and networks and so forth. So it really is an amazing opportunity to drive change. But I definitely want to recognize everyone out there, and especially Kelly here, as the idea that these take, gumption. This takes a lot of work. Yes, it really takes being a trailblazer. And I think it's not only a great opportunity back then, but it's still an amazing thing that's happening today. And what we try to do in my business at Vegan Mainstream is help people make that leap, help people make that transformation, whether they're coming from full-time corporate job, if they're trying to go and start their own thing, or they've been doing it on the side as a hustle out the garage, or however they've been doing it, making it work. How do they turn that into a potential career? How do they take the skills they have, the things that they do well, and can you blend that together and do something in the vegan marketplace and make impact in the world?
Well, hats off to you. I mean, you are really a pioneer because when I think like you were doing this for what, 16 years? I mean, like that's like, like it's like even before the dawn of time in terms of, the whole vegan movement. To be honest with you, I mean, seriously, like a lot of people back then were probably like, what is she even talking about? Like, this is never gonna work. She's just dreaming. So hats off for you. Hats off to you for like having the courage to go against the grain and swim against the stream because seriously, I mean, you're like what they say an OG, like an original here. Seriously. So that
Oh,
brings
thank
me
you.
seriously. So I just want to say hi to everybody who's joining. And please put your questions and comments down below for Stephanie, and she'll be happy to answer. And thanks so much for joining. And while we wait for questions and comments, we have a compliment here from Fluffy Jim Hair and Beauty there. You guys are the best. Well, thank you. You're the best, Kelly. You're the best. So that brings us to our next topic, Stephanie, which is your courses. Can you tell us a bit, please, about your courses? I guess, some of the subject matter that you cover, and then we're going to also get to your webinars.
Oh, perfect. So our courses are really kind of our way of getting the training out to the individuals. Because for a lot of people, they know how to do something really well. Like maybe they crochet well, they knit well, so they make hats and they can make sweaters and they can make these beautiful, quilt like, blankets and so forth. But they don't know the business side of things. They don't know maybe how to do some of the marketing and social media, even doing something like today, getting on Instagram Live. For a lot of people, they almost want to be like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do all of this? And what we try to do is kind of ease that process. We try to walk people through some of the basics of marketing. We try to walk people through how to run a business, put budgeting together. And then we also try to elevate it from there to do some of the fun stuff, like how do you broadcast to multiple networks and how do you do a live session and then turn it into a podcast. And then we also have mindset things where we're trying to teach people how to have the right mindset, meaning being comfortable with running a business, being comfortable with asking for money, being comfortable with earning a living wage so that you don't have to have a second job so that you can do your vegan job. And a lot of that is just helping people get comfortable with this process as they grow. Now, some people are doing service-based businesses, some people are doing products, maybe some people are doing combinations. So we help people across the board. But the idea is to kind of have somebody in your corner, and that's what our courses are designed for, is that you have somebody who can give you some training on a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot of this, go deeper into this. And we do all types of fun stuff. Like we do challenges once a month. We do live training so that you don't just look at recorded videos. You can see me on screen. And if you have a question, you can type it in and I can answer it. So that way you don't feel lonely in this
Especially
process.
now, especially
Yeah.
with the social distancing now.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really kind of an interactive, even though it's courses, we're trying to make it this interactive environment so you can get feedback, get questions answered, and also interact with other people. But that's really our courses. It's designed to support people, and it's designed to support people that may not have a big corporate background or a business background. So it's designed not to be intimidating, and it's designed to really be welcoming, is really what my goal is.
That's awesome. Now you touched on something that I just want to expand a little bit, and because I struggled with this personally, and that is you mentioned like being a vegan, but like not necessarily like being a little bit hesitant or embarrassed to make money as a vegan. And I find that topic to be super fascinating and super challenging. And what would you just say to someone who feels that way?
I guess I normally kind of create two perspectives on it. The number one perspective is we live in a world where we have bills, the reality. We have to pay rent, we have to pay electric, and so forth. So the idea is when we're asking you to ask for money, we're asking you to make a living wage. We're asking that people pay you so that you can have food on your table. And to me, that's a reasonable request. For most people, they can get their head around it because it's not about stockpiling it. It's not about, I want to have this huge mansion on the hill. It's about, hey, you do something great. And guess what? You should get paid for it so that you can live. The other thing I help people understand about this is that when you create a business, you create opportunity. So we all think about the market. We all think about veganism and the movement. There's so much kind of opportunity that can be created when you build a business by, number one, creating income that moves within our community. Meaning you're making money, you can hire other vegans, you can hire other vegan businesses, you can actually support nonprofits with this money. You can do all other things. If your finances are covered, maybe you can volunteer for other organizations. So it's really an enabling kind of, I guess, option in a sense to say that if your business makes money, you can make money for everyone. You can create opportunity for everyone. And I think when people start to see it that way, that it's not about this kind of exchange of, commerce in a sense, it's really us trying to create this vegan world that can be fueled. Because if we have the money, then we can get those billboards and put them up. If we have the money, we can have conferences where all the food is vegan because we can cover those costs. And these are the types of things that I want people to think about when they think about their business. And then the last thing is I want people to realize that You deserve to be compensated for your time. You should be valued for what you do. You bring expertise to the table, and therefore the people that purchase from you, people that enjoy your products, the people that attend your cooking classes, the people that get coached by you should appreciate what you do and be willing and excited about paying you for the results that you give them. So it becomes a relationship, you know what I mean, as opposed to a transaction. And I think when you start to think of your business as a relationship with your customers and your clients, it gets less about that transactional opportunity or, you know, kind of that negativity that can come into it. And you really start to understand that this is a way that you can help others and help the world and help veganism grow.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to listen to this again because I'm like super pumped. And Stephanie, first of all, thank you so much for that. Again, I'm just super pumped by what you said and super inspired. And you remind me of what someone said a few months ago. I think she's like she does like decluttering services, like, you know, kind of like, yeah, like basically you know, healing through decluttering or something. And she said something like, it's an even exchange of energy or something like that.
Interesting.
And I
Yeah.
thought that was
I
so
like
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I thought that was so awesome when she said it, because she was also like almost apologetic for, you know, charging for her services. But she said, but you know, I need to charge for my services. She was on a live, an Instagram live, and she just said, you know, I need to charge for my services, and you know, it's kind of like an even exchange of energy. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so profound. But the other thing too that I think what you're doing is you are shifting mindsets
Yes.
with that approach, and I just super love that.
Oh, well, thank you. But yeah, I think it's so important that we prepare for this journey and understand that it's a big thing that we're trying to do. And it's about our community. It's about the movement. It's that wider vision that I think sometimes gives us all a different perspective.
Yeah, and I love that you took it like beyond the selfish perspective, and you took it like, you know, it's bigger than just us, or it's just bigger than ourselves. And I super love that. And we have Fluffy Jim here in Beauty saying, your courses sound amazing. Can I please ask, what is your advice on overcoming imposter syndrome? And I think that's kind of linked to what you said, but if you have anything else to add.
Well, one thing I would just add to it is I tell a lot of people that these feelings that we get, it's okay and they're natural. Because I think sometimes we try to push them down. We try to make it seem like we don't get them, you know, whether it's getting nervous before a presentation, whether it's worried that will they like it. Those things are going to creep into your brain, especially if you want to do the best, if you're used to, you know, servicing, helping people, supporting people. And if you have that ability to always do self-reflection, you're going to get some of these feelings that creep in that sometimes give you doubt, sometimes make you feel a little bit nervous or and so forth. But the idea is to accept that. And what I really want people to do is get used to overcoming it. So therefore, you don't feel like you have imposter syndrome for like a week or a month. Eventually, it pops in and you assess it. And I'll talk about some tips for it. But the idea is it's supposed to come up less and less frequently. You get more and more comfortable in your skin. And a lot of that, I think it comes down to is actually doing it. Sometimes what happens is we have to get out of our heads, because in our heads is when we start evaluating things and making decisions. And sometimes it's not even like a realistic perspective of what's really going on. Like we're having this whole conversation out there and there's really no one else participating or giving us input. So therefore, it might not be real. So sometimes you have to get out there. And number one, I love to tell people, spend time with your customers. If you're not sure if your product or service is meeting the level of satisfaction or happiness or NPS score or whatever you're measuring your business by, ask a customer if you can get on the phone with them and they'll talk to you about their experience. Because sometimes hearing somebody else talk about your business, your product, and how they felt about it can often shift your mindset because you're hearing it from a totally different perspective. The other thing is you don't have to do everything alone. So when people, I have a lot of people that get really nervous about doing things like live sessions like this because they're like, oh, I don't want to, I'm the expert. I don't know if I can handle it. What about this? And it's like, do a session like this and do it with a friend. Do it with a colleague. Do it with someone else that maybe does something similar that you do. And doing partnerships and so forth, even if you're doing something like a cooking class, I tell a lot of people, even when you're doing virtual cooking classes, do them together on Zoom, as an example, if you're a coach. Because what happens is you have someone to bounce ideas off of, you have someone to kind of go through that process with you. And also, some of those fears and those concerns that you have, because there's someone else there kind of as support, what you'll find is those fears probably weren't real in the beginning. You guys did a fabulous job. And then you have somebody who can give you real-time feedback and say, no, 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 that was great. Or I loved how you did that. So it's really, I find, a great way of overcoming that is really coming up with partnerships, collaborations, and then sometimes just getting out there and knowing that you're helping the world. Just you really have to remember that if you do your best and you put your heart into it, you're going to get the returns. Now, maybe not tomorrow. Maybe you won't have 50,000 people on a live stream. But if you have 4 people, 2 people, 1 person that signs up on a live stream, give them your all. Because that 1 person showed up. And you never know. That 1 person will probably get off and say, I can't believe you spent all that time with me. I told everyone about your life, and they're coming next week.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
This is awesome. We have a thank you that this is so helpful here from Kelly. Yeah, no, I agree, Kelly. This is, woof, I'm pumped up. It's true. And, like you say, it's a kind of like getting outside our comfort zone a lot.
Yes.
Which is super duper hard. And I look at it as progress over perfection.
Yes.
Like when I compare, I'll just say like my very first live compared to now this one, which is my 70th live, 70. And
Ooh.
I mean, my first live in August was disastrous. I mean, I kid you not. Like, I just don't even want anyone to go and watch it except for the guest who I had. Yes, I want them to watch her, but it was just horrible. And so, because I was just so super nervous and everything. So I can definitely see your point. Like, like you say, we have this movie in our heads, and it's not always, we're writing some kind of weird script, some kind of fantasy script, and it's all fiction,
Yes.
So definitely. Thank you, Stacy, for the applause. There we go. And so that takes us to your webinars. If you could tell us a bit, please, about your webinars.
Absolutely. So our webinars is our way to give free training, because I know for some people you don't have the budget yet for the course, or maybe you're just not in the space yet for it. You have to work on a couple other things going on. Plus, there's a lot going on in the world these days. So we want to make sure that I have a way to help people. If you just need a little bit of advice, a little bit of motivation, a few quick tips that I can help you with in a free format, that's what our webinars are designed to do. So we do our webinars once a month, the 3rd Wednesday of the month. And it's really a great way that people can jump on like in a Zoom session. And what's cool about our Zoom session is, I do the presentation, but at the end of that session, I do like Q&A. And I do Q&A until everyone's done. So if you're in our Zoom session, it's really awesome because you can say, well, what about this? Or how does it apply to my business? Because I know sometimes it's hard to translate the idea to your business. But we also broadcast the webinars as well. So from a broadcast standpoint, you can get them Facebook, YouTube, and all that good stuff, so people can access them. But I always love it when people come into the Zoom session because I love Q&A. Like, I love being able to answer someone's question, or like finding that one thing that, kind of removes that little roadblock, or kind of like reduces that speed bump that the person just felt like they went over. And that's really my goal. So our topics are really the range. We talk about how to become an entrepreneur. We talked like last year about being a nimble entrepreneur because everyone was flexing and pivoting, and how do you do those things? We talk about basic stuff like how to get paid, because, it's a little bit complicated with all these systems and tools and so forth. So how do you invoice somebody? How do you physically do these things, especially as we socially distance more? People have moved to a digital environment. So we try to keep our topics kind of topical, and really kind of making sure that they're relevant to the challenges that people are having today and how to use these channels to make things work. Now, I'm always about business. Like, I have businesses on my mind. Wake up, sleep at night. But I also have a passion for the nonprofit world. I mean, I'm on the board for Veg Fund, So I do a lot on the nonprofit side, and I try to make sure my webinars can flex to that as well. So if somebody who's watching today, if you run a nonprofit or an organization, you know, these webinars will work for you too, and they're recorded. You can watch them later if you want. We're trying to just make sure that we get enough out there to inspire people and give them enough of that knowledge to keep you going.
That is so awesome. I just want to say hi to everyone who's joining. Thanks for joining. And please put your questions and comments down below for Stephanie, and she'll be happy to answer. And that takes us, you mentioned the word pivot, which I super love and which I started to use last year in the midst of this whole global pandemic thing. And I would like for you to please tell us about your Pivot podcast. But before you do that, I want to say that I am now one of your biggest fans and biggest listeners. And I have just been taking, in so many of your episodes during my walks and I'm learning so much. And I just want to thank you and your guests for, being so, forthright and so open and sharing not only their personal journeys, but like their professional journeys and how they had to pivot. So please tell us a bit about Pivot Podcast.
Absolutely. First off, thank you for listening. Oh, it's so wonderful to hear that. It's just so helpful and inspiring too. So you're inspiring me in this process. But our Pivot Podcast, we actually started it last year, kind of in response to the pandemic. So it was a little bit of my pivot as a way for me to get some of this content and information out. It was a way for me to connect with people to see how they were doing, what was happening in their world, because I was having all these conversations a little bit privately. And then what we found is, why not share this with others so they can hear how we all kind of have to, be nimble and change and try this and so forth. And I think it helps take away some of the myth around running a business, running an organization, being a leader, being a manager, and helping people understand that it's not about having all the right answers all the time. It's not about knowing it all or, foreseeing it all or, that kind of thing. It's the idea that at times we're going to be presented with a challenge. At times we're going to be presented with something that maybe we've never encountered before. But the idea is, how do you build the skills so you can tackle those things? How do you hear what other people have done when they have been met with adversity or a change? And not even just bad stuff. Sometimes it's good stuff, like things sell more than you thought it would sell. Your course or program sells out and you're like, what do I do? Or I'm a coach and my calendar is completely booked, so people are upset because they can't book on my calendar. Like, great things happen too. And you have to figure out, how do I manage that now? What do I do? What's my response? So we thought putting together a podcast would be a great way for people to hear it firsthand from other entrepreneurs. And our goal was to kind of interview not just the big entrepreneurs in our vegan world, not just the people who have a little bit of some household names, but household products or services and so forth, but to interview people that are just starting out, interview people who've been doing it for a year, interview people who started a business, decided to stop their business, got a job, then decided to open up a business again. All of these things that we all do. I want people to see themselves in some of our guests. I want them to hear someone say something like, I didn't know what to do, so I just tried this and that. And then guess what? Because I tried, because I showed up, I got something to work. So I really wanted to give people a little bit of that inspiration and also a little bit of a candid discussion about running businesses, being vegan and trying to do it, and trying to be ethical, trying to find our way forward, doing stuff like we talked about earlier in our space session, when you're doing something for the first time and no one else does it, or no one in your city or your town is doing it. And how do you start to connect with people and hear these stories so that you understand that, this is a speed bump. This is a challenge, but you will make it over it. And maybe you reach out to one of our guests and ask them a question, follow up with them, hear if they can help you. So it's really my way of kind of helping people through some of these challenges that we've been feeling, in the last year or so. But I'm hoping to kind of continue it moving forward, because I think in all businesses, in all work of life, there's nothing but change and adaptation we have to do. So I'm hoping this series will help people in the future.
Well, I just want to say kudos to you. I mean, I've learned so much in the few episodes that I've listened to. I kid you not. Like, I won't give you the concrete examples because it's probably embarrassing, but like I cleaned up some of my, copywriting content, listening to one of your guests. You probably know who that is. I'm so inspired about the whole, retreat world from one of your other recent guests. The clothing, cooking classes, just trying stuff and just like, pitching a tent basically, and just like, hey, I'm just going to try this. And, I like to think of it as, throwing the pasta on the wall, and just if it sticks, great. If it doesn't, well, all right, then try something different, so I just want to applaud you and your guests because I am learning so much. And, it's not even like your podcast going for hours and hours. Like you keep it very concise. But honestly, I have learned so much, and I just keep looking forward to listening to more until I can get through your whole list of episodes. While I also juggle some other podcasts because I just love podcasts. So, hats off to you and your guests, truly. I mean, you guys are doing like a huge service to so many people. And honestly, I would say even to non-vegans. I mean, there's so much that everyone can learn from, what you all are discussing, but also in these most challenging times, again, I think it's super inspiring to see that you created this whole, pivot podcast in the midst of this dilemma, but also that, again, your guests are walking us through step by step, pretty much how they've handled their pivot and they have accomplished their pivot. And I'm not saying that everything is perfect. By all means, I'm not saying that, but it's just awesome to hear how, you all have just being so flexible amidst all of this turmoil.
Yeah, it's been really inspiring for me, and I'm so glad that you're enjoying the sessions because it's really nice to hear kind of what happens kind of on the inside because you don't always hear that. Most of us want to share the story of like the best I've ever had, the best this, the greatest this, the biggest this, and you don't always hear when it's like I didn't know what to do for 2 days, or I was frustrated, or I couldn't believe this happened, or any of those things. And kind of hearing those candid conversations, I think, is helpful for everyone. It's even helpful for me when I have a tough day or a tough week, that it just reminds me that this is a part of the course, but this is a part of growing. This is the part of learning. This is like anything. Even when I've been vegan so long now that I forget what it was like when I first went vegan. I forgot what it's like, those early trying days and,
It's true.
switching over your kitchen and your pantry and all that stuff. It can be really hard. And that's kind of the idea I tell a lot of people is remember something hard that you did before, something was challenging that you did before. Because if you're going through something challenging now and you realize that, hey, I overcame that, I probably can overcome this.
Totally. This is awesome. So we have a few minutes left and a few questions left for you, Stephanie.
Okay.
My next question is regarding naysayers and critics of our vegan diet and lifestyle. Now, obviously, you have a lot of years under your belt. And so what are some of the ways you handle those instances of, a little bit of resistance from people who are, criticizing our diet and lifestyle?
Well, a lot of what I do is I lean on the experts. I don't try to make myself an expert, especially on health. That's not my training. That's not my background. I can give my story. But if I want to kind of talk about the science behind it, especially from a health standpoint, then what I do is I refer them to, or I forward articles, podcasts, videos from doctors, from individuals that I believe have that science, have that experience. So being able to say, hey, take a look at Dr. Montgomery. He has, he has a clinic. He has a, full clinic in Houston. He sees patients every single day. He's a cardiologist. And this is what he says about it. So being able to kind of lean on some of those individuals, I think makes a really big difference. And it's a great way to actually overcome these discussions. And I think it's across the board, whether it's an environmental discussion that we're having a dialogue about, whether it's about someone who's having a health challenge, because I don't know all those details. I haven't been through them personally. So therefore, trying to get people that I can use as my go-to resources, I find is a great way to do it. And then the other thing I think sometimes is our approach. We talked about the idea that there's a finesse in being persuasive. There's a finesse in helping people understand a different point of view. And also there's a finesse in giving people space to change. Because when someone sits down and talks to you, sometimes they may come across as a critic, but they're really trying to understand. Maybe their tact wasn't so great. So we can't always like punch back. We can't always kind of say, nah, we sound like kids like, nah, no, it doesn't. We can't be that all the time. We have to sometimes give people an opportunity to come into our direction. So that's why inviting people to do certain things. Now it's a little hard these days to invite someone to go to a restaurant, but maybe you guys can do a cooking session together on Zoom. So a person can actually cook a dish that you're going to cook. And as they have questions about it, whether it's a friend, a family member, whether it's a colleague, then they can ask those questions in that environment. And it becomes less of like me versus you and who won. And it becomes an activity and experience that you can do together. Maybe if you see an article or something, you can forward that article, a podcast, and say, hey, this is what I learned from it. And therefore, you don't always come across as the I know it all and you don't know anything yet personality. Instead, you share and show what you learned. That gives another person space to say, hey, I listened to it too, and this is what I learned. And therefore, not everyone's going to convert overnight. Not everyone's going to just become vegan, instantly. But when someone feels like they have they have a voice in the discussion, when they feel like they can have a dialogue, and when they feel like they can really have space to explore, sometimes that makes sense. And then also sometimes, I hate to say it, and you didn't really ask me this, so maybe you're going to not want me to go here, but I think
go there.
All right. I think sometimes we have to realize who we're talking to. Because I think sometimes we want to approach a person who's, they're the sixth generation of cattle ranchers, as an example. And that discussion is not the same as someone who's been vegetarian for 5 years. So therefore, you have to not only approach that conversation differently, also, we don't always have to engage in the most confrontational conversations. We can exhaust ourselves as vegans. We can always be in this fighting mode if we're always seeking out the person who's coming ready to battle with us. And then we come to battle with them. And I don't think that's the right approach. I think for some people who are a little bit confrontational and want to fight it out all the time, yes, sometimes you have to jump in the arena to have that discussion, but you can't hang out there all the time. You can't only have those kind of discussions. We have to work with people who are closer to converting. We have to work with people who are open-minded. We have to spend that time because we want to get as many people over into this lifestyle and help them understand, experience the benefits. But we have to really pick and choose where you want to have your battle. Where's your battleground? And I just think that's something to think about as you're having these discussions, who you're engaging with, and how do you want to bring people over into the lifestyle, or at least whether it's a step-by-step approach or transition period, how do you help people through that?
Oh my gosh, I just love all of your ideas. And I'm on Clubhouse. Shout out to Clubhouse. Join me on Clubhouse at A Yummy Vegan. Are you on Clubhouse?
I am, but I'm all silent right now. Next week, I am going all in. April is my Clubhouse month, so.
Okay, because I think I'm following you. I try to search for people who I see on Instagram and try to search for on Clubhouse, so I will double check. But the other day, I was in a Clubhouse room discussion with two ranchers. And the reason I joined that conversation was because I wanted to learn about the perspective of someone who breeds animals for sale. And I learned so much listening to these ranchers. And then the other day, I was also in a room with people who are looking for regenerative farming, and that includes animals and
Mm.
plants. And
Mm.
again, I learned about the perspective of, you know, how they're thinking, what their concerns are, what their objectives are, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I really applaud you for bringing up that point, because you know, we can all learn. And you know, it's like people say, you know, meet people where they are. And honestly, like, I have really gotten outside of my comfort zone and my little, you know, bubble of, you know, like-minded people, I guess we could call it. And it's just been super, super you know, eye-opening. And, you know, to use one of the words you used earlier, like, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to, you know, reach across the aisle, as we say, and, you know, bridge some of those communication gaps that we might have. So I would just highly encourage anyone to, you know, get outside of our comfort zones. And it is uncomfortable, and it's scary, and it's, you know, new territory. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm going to say when they say such and such. What am I going to say? I don't know. You know, I'm just going to be, you know, like a deer in headlights, which is a terrible example, but
Mhm.
it's like, you know, like, sometimes I'm stunned by what I'm hearing, you know, but I'm like, all right, well, you know, keep going. I'm learning, you know, like, don't, you know, just hang in there, stay in there, you know. So I'm getting a yes from Stacy. Stacy knows what I'm talking about, because Stacy's on Clubhouse as well, in many of the clubs and the rooms that I'm also in. And we have the same experience where we're like, wow, like, gosh, we're learning so much from people who have totally different experiences. And like you say,
Mm.
you know, for multiple generations, this has been their reality, and this is their legacy. This is what they've been handed, you know, from their great grandparents up to now.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a lot for people to feel like, how do I maintain my traditions? How do I still respect my family? Like, there's other things that are kind of packed into these decisions that I think sometimes we overlook, because, especially as vegans, we see the suffering. We know what's happening. We know the urgency that's so needed, that sometimes we skip past other people's pain and what can keep them from changing. And we have to recognize that too, because we need to be advocates for helping people through that, understanding that, and understanding how do they make those migrations and those changes. Because for some people, it's a big shift. It's a big family shift. It means a lot for them to make these changes.
Yeah, we have Stacy Katzenberg saying it is all they know, and now we need to teach them better ways, alternate ways that are better for the world. Yes,
Yes.
and you know, it doesn't always happen overnight. With some people, it's overnight, but you know, our culture is just not set up. Our society, our economy, politics, whatever you want to call it, it's just not set up, you know, in this way. And so we are kind of going against the grain in a lot of cases. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a very, very good example in terms of, you know, what's being, you know, handed down generation after generation. Oh, so Stacey's saying, if Renee did it, anyone can. Now, Renee is rowdy
Rowdy
girl.
girl.
Yeah. Shout out to Renee, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Awesome. And she has two clubhouse rooms today. As far as I know, she might have more, but I know about two. So I will be joining the one in the evening time. So this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you there,
This is really great.
Stacy.
Yep.
Awesome. And so this takes us to one of our final questions, and that is, Stephanie, in terms of newbies, vegan curious, vegan friendly people, and they're like, oh, you know, this vegan thing, I don't really know where to start. What are a couple recommendations you would give them to kind of help them to start their vegan journey, please?
I guess I would have maybe two recommendations. The first one I would say is personalize your vegan journey. And what I mean by that is, whatever's your favorite dish, veganize your favorite dish. don't just veganize something that other people said was cool online, or if you don't eat a lot of kale, then kale salad is not your first thing to
I was going to
veganize.
say, at least don't start with it. You can
Yeah.
get there eventually.
Eventually you'll get there. And I love kale. But, you have to start with things that kind of, you have a relationship with, the foods and the things that you really often these foods are integrated into our culture, just like we were talking a little bit before. Even when I made the transition, I felt like, oh, barbecues is a big thing for me. How am I going to participate in these things? I was in corporate America and we did a lot of potlucks, or we did a lot of meetings where people brought in food and everyone was bringing in donuts and all this stuff. And I was like, how can I still participate? Because I didn't want to not participate. And as well, I didn't want necessarily at that time, because I was new at the time, I wasn't trying to make a statement. I wasn't ready to kind of show up with a presentation before we shared snacks. So the idea was I needed a solution that helped me do it. So I learned how to make banana bread as an example, because we found that was a really good thing that a lot of people liked. And we made banana breads. We made them in like little cupcake size things. And then I brought them and people loved them. So then what happens is it became a conversation opener, as opposed to, no, I can't eat that. No, I can't eat that kind of conversation in a meeting. And I think it's so important that you either pick a food that you can veganize, or pick a food that you leverage or use in your family, in dinner. It's a cultural dish maybe that you use. Maybe it's something that you and your friends grew up making together. Veganize those things so that your veganism also gets connected to a happy thing, a happy place, a happy memory. And you kind of connect that happy experience with veganism. Because otherwise, if veganism becomes the without, if veganism becomes the I can't have this, can't do this, can't do that, then you have this kind of can't stream running in your brain, and sometimes it starts to run in our subconscious, and that feels restrictive. And veganism is not restrictive in any way. There's so many things that you can do. There's so many different ways to do things. It just might be a little differently than you were initially raised, and a lot of that just is our cultures and habits that we all have. So starting that process to me is really important. And then the other thing is finding or creating a little bit of a vegan network around your support system. At that time, I joined, a vegan meetup because we were able to travel and go places and so forth. But there's a lot of virtual ones as well. There's a lot of, groups online that people can come together in, whether it's like a Facebook group. And there's Facebook groups even for just your city and your town. Just join them. And you don't have to be active. You don't have to post. You don't have to go to the local protest. You can just join and like the photos and do some of the, recipes and so forth. Or ask other people if anyone is doing anything. One thing that my niece and I do, and she's vegan as well, but one thing that we do is we cook together every Sunday. Sunday at 5:00, we get together. We've been doing this for the entire pandemic, which is kind of crazy that we've been maintaining this whole time.
I love that.
And we just cook a dish together. And what happens is it's a way for us to catch up for the week, talk. It's a way for us to be like, wait a minute, mine's not browning. Is yours browning? Like, so we're learning together.
I love that.
We're like, oh, I read the recipe wrong. I put the oil in the recipe instead of the pan. That happened yesterday.
I love that. Shout out to your niece.
She's so great. I talk about her like she's teeny tiny. Even
if she's
older.
like 100, I don't care. Shout out to your niece. It's awesome.
But those things I think are so important for all of us to do, is to build our networks, whether it's our extended family, whether it's our friends, and even in this time when we're not able to get together, and even when we can get together, because the idea is you can't get together with everyone. My family's all spread out over the US. Mm-hmm. And the idea is we can use this technology to connect with people now that we're all like half Zoom experts.
It's true. Like even people who've like never opened a laptop before, now they're like Zooming all over the world.
Absolutely. So let's do these things. Let's make sure you reach out to someone. And even if it's something you never made, because my niece and I, we make stuff we have not made before. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh, let's try this. And I don't know about that texture. Every once in a while we make something that's like, who picked this? This wasn't good. But it's okay. That's us learning together. That's us experimenting together. And it's an environment that's a safe, wonderful environment for me. So if I do have to cook for someone, or I have to cook a no oil meal for someone, you know what I mean? If I have to cook for someone who's gluten free or any of those things, even in the future, some of this is a little bit me practicing. It's a little bit of fun, but it's also a little bit of me increasing my cooking skills over time, and it becomes an asset. But I think for anyone out there that's trying to figure out where to get started, I would say those two places. Build, veganize something you love, connect it to a great memory, and then create a community network, or at least a group of people, even if it's just two people or one person, that you can kind of experience the journey together.
That is beautiful. You remind me of, I had this vegetarian cookbook that I found in university. And like I think I was saying earlier, like in retrospect, it seemed to be vegan because they weren't using like eggs or milk. And I would make their banana bread version and their carrot cake version, and everyone who ate it would just be gaga over it. And they had no idea that there were no animals in it, and I would never say it. I mean, in those days, I didn't have the concept of veganism anyway, so I was just like, oh my gosh, this
It tastes good.
recipe, yeah. And people just always loved them. And I was like, well, I guess I'm making that again, and because I'm not like the best chef in the kitchen at all, but what I'm trying to say is like, it's such a brilliant idea. And I know we hear about veganize all the time, but that's just a brilliant idea. And we have some comments here. Oh yeah. So Fluffy Jim says, spaghetti bolognese is my favorite. I could eat it every meal. It's easy to transition to vegan. Definitely. And lots of support here. Thank you. So Stephanie, we have three more questions and we're going to wrap this up really quick. So
I'm having a great time.
Thank you. So am I. And everyone in the chat is having fun too. And so I want to ask you, please, if there are any projects that you have coming up, any future projects that you want to share at this time?
That is a great question. I guess I have two things that I'm working on. One thing is kind of related with the courses. So it's like perfect timing because in April and May, we're transitioning to like this new course format. So this week is like my first week. We did a trial run in March, had some testers help me out. But our new course format is coming out this month, and in May, fingers crossed, our app will come out where we'll
Oh
have
my
like an app that you can download on your computer that says vegan mainstream, and people can like
Oh,
watch the courses on their phone and everything. So that's hopefully in May. But we have to see how the tech timeline goes. So that's really exciting. And one of the other things that I work on is I work on a project that's called Plant Powered Kamala. It started by an organization called the Divinity Foundation. And what they've done is really brought together this coalition of women of color, which really I'm so proud of being a part of, where we're trying to drive awareness. We're trying to drive visibility as well of kind of women of color in this vegan movement. And then also, yes, we're asking Kamala Harris, who, is vice president here in the US, to go plant-based. And we're going to keep trying, keep talking. So you never know what will come of it. But the idea is really getting that messaging out there, helping people understand that this is something that should be on the agenda, especially countrywide level. And then having different voices and individuals, not just in the US, but worldwide. I really think this is headed by Nivi Jaswal, who's just amazing. I just have been so excited to be a part of this group, this coalition, and be a part of kind of driving that change, and also driving that dialogue about how important it is, what it means to different communities, what it means to women of color, what it means in different economic lifestyles and economic kind of areas. And I really just feel like it's such an important work to be done, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it.
wow. Well, first of all, hats off to you for both of your new, initiatives and projects coming up. And I did see a post in one of the plant-based news publications about Kamala Harris, trying vegan, or, and people were like pushing basically lobbying for her
Yes.
to adopt a plant-based diet. And I was like, yes, 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 we have to do it. And I actually used her hashtag
Yes. That
after
was
I saw
great.
after I saw that, I was like, I'm gonna use that hashtag see if I can get some people to like pay attention to this initiative, right? And so yeah, we have Stacy saying brilliant idea. Trini, yes, keep trying. Everything matter. That's awesome. I agree. No, but that's just fantastic because these people, like, in terms of like, the vice president, they have so much clout and so much influence on people.
Yes, absolutely. And having that dialogue and that discussion, even if maybe it doesn't all happen in the foreground and we don't get to see it all. I mean, it was
Right.
great, that article when Kamala Harris was, they said, dabbling
Yeah.
with veganism. I love that
Yeah.
headline.
And
That
I'm
was
like, go
amazing.
all the way, go all the way.
Yep, 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 yep. So that stuff was just so wonderful to hear. But having someone who's maybe thinking about it, considering it, or maybe even having some of those conversations behind the scenes, I think is so, so important.
I agree. We have Fluffy Jim saying she has to leave. Thank you so much, Kelly. See you on Clubhouse. Stacy saying, is there a way we can help push that? I am not of color, but love this so much. So
Abs-
what can everybody do?
Oh, a couple of different things. It's actually, we just have a lot of women and women of color. So it's open to all
Everyone.
women who are participating. And it's just really, the coalition was initially formed that way, but we work with people across the board. So two things I would say is definitely just do a search on Instagram for Plant Powered Kamala. You can start to see some of the posts. Definitely look for Divinity so you can maybe follow them and maybe echo some of the posts, do some stories and so forth. And then if you want to get connected with Nivi, you can always send me a direct message at Instagram at Vegan Mainstream, and I can get you connected and we can hopefully get this world to go vegan.
That would be awesome. And that really brings us to our next question, Stephanie, which is, what are the best ways for people to contact you for more information, collaboration, questions, etc.?
Yeah, well, I'm on all social media platforms. So no matter what platform that you use, you can always drop me a line. You can do direct messages, no matter what they are. Everything is across the board under the business name. So at Vegan Mainstream, it's a great way to stay in touch. But also, I love connecting with people personally. I always tell people to jump into LinkedIn because LinkedIn is a great way for us to connect and for me to see what you do, maybe even promote what you're doing. Maybe even share it. Maybe I'm interested. Maybe I need the product. I buy stuff too. So I tell people that there's so many different ways we can get connected. So definitely look me up on LinkedIn. And within, my maiden name is Red Cross. So if you look up Stephanie Red Cross or Stephanie Red Cross West, most of the time you can find me. There's not that many Stephanie Red Crosses out there in the world. I tell people to always go into LinkedIn and get connected because then we can have some dialogue, some conversation, and see if there's anything that I'm doing that can support you. And also I can learn a little bit about everyone out there. Oh, and then our website, veganmainstream.com.
Awesome. Well, I want to say that I discovered you through the Animal Justice Academy.
I was wondering.
I
Okay,
know, and
nice.
I obviously didn't even remember to put that in my message to you.
That's
And
okay.
now that you were talking, I was like, geez, Louise, I never even told her how I even like discovered her. So that's how I discovered you, Stephanie, through the Animal Justice Academy. So shout out to Animal Justice Academy. And I was in the audience on Zoom for your presentation. I was like, oh my gosh, she's doing some great work. I need to put her on my invitation list to see if she will agree to come and talk to everybody. So thank you so much for this. And so we're going to wrap this up. First of all, I want to thank you again, Stephanie, for taking the time. Thanks to everybody who watched live or on the replay and all of your questions and comments. And so, Stephanie, my final question for you is if you just have any final thoughts for us, if you just kind of want to wrap this all up and put a bow on it for us, please.
Ooh, this is a tough thing to do. We covered so many good, fun topics. But to me, it's really always about, I would just want to inspire people to drive change in the world, whether it's in just your family, whether it's just in your household, whether it's in your city, your town, whether you do want to make a global impact, that's cool too. But I really want people to realize that if you dream it, it can happen. This is how my life has been. I've been fortunate when I was a kid to, dream or have the idea that, I wanted to live and work in Japan at one point in time. I decided I wanted to do that at 5. Crazy,
Amazing.
crazy dream.
I
And
love
it
it.
happened. I got to study in Japan. I got to work in Japan. I got to go to Japan. I got to fly my family to Japan, for Christmas. I mean, just so many things can happen when you believe in yourself, when you believe in the world around you, when you build support systems around you. And I think that really is so important for all of us to have as we try to move kind of the world towards this, vegan mainstream environment where we try to kind of get the world to go vegan. And the idea is your contribution is beautiful, no matter what it is, no matter how big or small it is. But the idea is just believe in yourself, be kind of a beacon of hope and inspiration for people out there in the world. And I really hope that people, I know things are tough right now, I know things are hard right now, but I really hope that people understand that we're here together trying to make all this work. And that all sounds so utopia. It's so great. But I want to make sure that people understand that this is all about us learning, growing, and being the best version and contributing and driving change in the best way we know how. Maybe we'll stumble, maybe we'll figure it out. But the idea is that as we do this for the world, as we do this for animals, as we do this even sometimes for our individual health, our family's health, or for the environment, it's all a great cause. So continue to do that great work out there and continue to change the world.
Oh my gosh. Well, on that note, Stephanie, I just want to thank you so much. I know I'm gonna have to listen to some of this again because I'm just like I'm really pumped up. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for taking the time. And I am going to save this on Instagram, IGTV, and then I will post it in my feed and stories, and then I'll message you after.
Perfect, because I'd love to be able to share this out and let everyone know about it.
Awesome. And we have Stacy saying thanks so much to both of you. Well, thank you, Stacy, and everybody who joined either live or on the replay. And again, thank you, Stephanie, and thanks everybody, and take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks. Thanks,
Bye-bye. Thank
Stacey. Bye.
you.
See
Bye-bye.
ya.